Welcome into the Moy Boys Dynasty Podcast, the greatest podcast that you didn't want or ask for. And now introducing your hosts, Jake the Gluten-Free Harris and Peter Cheater Pigoo Hot Sizzle O'Donnell.
Okay, we should be working now. Hey. All right, so welcome in, fellas. We are going to be talking about the most recent rookie draft, and we're going to kind of go back and see how we've improved as rookie drafters from the 2022 draft. I have that pulled up, as well as the most recent 2023 draft. We're going to go in order of the current pick order. I'm not going to talk about myself, as much as I love to. We're going to jump straight in. No hesitation, Rich. We're talking about...
We all know softball guy. A lot of you are softball guy. Let me very quickly take you through softball guy.
All right. So, retired softball guy. Here we go. Rich in 2022 did not have a first-round pick until he traded into the first round to get Jameson Williams. This ended up being a mistake in overall value, but the verdict is still kind of out because Anthony Richardson could be a bust. That was who was taken at the 102. From a value perspective, obviously big boo-boo, but Jameson Williams could end up being a stud. These are possible outcomes. So the other thing to keep in mind about generally on almost any situation, you do not want to be trading the last pick of a draft, like the 110 in this situation, last pick of the first round. You don't want to be trading that for a future randomly generated pick. So giving up your 2024 fourth or 2024 first for the 110 in 2023 is generally a bad idea. However, here is where I do believe that part of the process was correct here for Rich. He wasn't making that trade pre-draft. He was making that trade in draft. In those situations where you're making that trade in draft, you're not trading for the pick, you're trading for the player. Now, where the process was wrong is if you're going to be giving up your own first, I would like to see you get a player that's going to be productive the coming season, or at least has a chance to be productive, whereas Jameson Williams did not really have a chance to be productive. Again, kind of hindsight. Some people were more optimistic about his ACL situation than others. I was not on the optimistic side. Rookie, missing camp, all that stuff. Every narrative was against Jameson Williams. While I'm a fan of fading narratives in Dynasty and looking straight into stats, the stats also supported the narrative. Now, Rich moves up, or does not move up. Rich gets the 206 in the 2022 draft, grabs Malik Willis. The 2022 season was a bit weird because of how pushed up the quarterbacks were in those rookie drafts because there were no quarterbacks drafted ahead of them. Hindsight, again, those third-round quarterbacks really should be third-round rookie picks. Now, it worked out for a few other guys that we're going to talk about later, but Malik Willis did not work out. His next pick was 304, grabs Wan'Dale Robinson. Verdict is still out. I'm not a fan of taking small wide receivers, but Wan'Dale did have a couple of good games and could have a Kadarius Toney value arc where even if he doesn't perform or gets injured, stays injured, whatever, doesn't come back immediately, I believe he tore his ACL, so he could miss the beginning of season. There are going to be built-in excuses for him. And people are going to like him because the Giants don't have a ton of wide receivers available to them. Next up, he grabbed Tyrion Davis-Price at 309. Didn't work out. Jelani Woods, verdict still out at the 404. Now, when you look at Jelani Woods, I'm not a huge, let me move my phone here. I'm not a huge truther because I believe a rookie tight end needs to be able to beat out the incumbent and draw at least 50 targets to be a truly fantasy relevant option. And they did just draft another tight end to add to the crowd in Will Mallory, I think his name is. So that's that. As far as Rich's 2023 rookie draft, I do like what he did here. He gets Jonathan Mingo, 202. There's probably a couple players that I would prefer over Mingo, being Charbonnet and pretty much end of list that went after Mingo, but that's definitely preference. And in Rich's situation where he's in a rebuild, an obvious rebuild, you grab the guy who's going to have more insulated value. Or if Charbonnet comes out face plants, he's a running back, no one cares about him. Like the pick. Hendon Hooker was his next pick at 302. I like that you got your third round pick. He was taken higher in the third round than Malik Willis was, I believe. And you got him at a much better value. Instead of grabbing him at the 206, where guys like Kendry Miller, Jaden Reed, Michael Mayer were all still on the board, including Roshan Johnson, Sam Laporta, yada. You grab him at 302, where I'm really not all that excited. And I think we're a team that really needs the upside. And like maybe Tank Bigsby doesn't actually add any like tangible value for you. Take your swing. I don't know if he was going to get past Peter at the 303 either, possibly, but I like the pick. Next up with 305, Cedric Tillman. You know, the Browns offense is definitely a little unclear as far as, you know, who the pass catchers are. Elijah Moore's there. You'd think he's the wide receiver too, but like, who knows? Then there's DPJ and Cedric Tillman. You know, I think the David Bell experiment is dead and gone. He face planted pretty darn hard, only drawing, let me get my phone again, only drawing 35 targets and racking up 200 yards. Not a fan there. So I like the Cedric Tillman pick. Tajay Spears at 309. Bum knees, but good opportunities. No knees, but opportunities. Jalen Hyatt at 402 could end up being the value of the draft. I liked Hyatt. I just always happen to like another player who was on the board more. I do like that this draft in 2023, the wide receivers were not hammered nearly so much. And I mean, it's definitely was not a strength of the class, the wide receivers. But if you look back at the 2022 draft, every wide receiver taken after the 204, with the sole exception of Romeo Doubs, pretty much failed. Verdict still out on Wan'Dale Robinson. But after the 204, no wide receivers worked out. So I like that when you're taking a shot on Jalen Hyatt, you're doing it with the 4th round pick. Well done. And last but not least, Evan Hull. I really like the selection. Slots in to potentially be the straight handcuff to Jonathan Taylor. All he has to get past is Zach Moss and Deion Jackson. It's a pretty easy task. So well done there. He was definitely going to be a pick of mine if he made it. So, Rich, I really like it. I think you've improved, and I give your draft, I definitely give it a solid B. The only thing that would make it an A for me would have been potentially like a couple of in-draft trades where you're trading back from Mingo like one spot and picking up like a 4th, just because you need to be taking your assets. Maybe you still get Mingo at 203. Maybe Peter, who was at 203, had someone he really liked, and he wanted to make sure that he got him, that you weren't going to take him. Take those opportunities, leverage them, acquire draft capital. You need to be taking just a multiple dart approach, just as many darts as you can possibly throw so that you can begin to stack value on your team, not necessarily because you're going to be starting all these players, but because you're stacking future draft capital, you're stacking value, and that value is purchasing power. For when you do decide to compete, you'll be able to have the purchasing power to go out and get the players you want. Next up, Peter Cheater, Pigu, Hot Sizzle O'Donnell at the 3 spot. Let's take a look back at his 2022 draft. Jahan Dotson, I really like the pick with the 201, Rashad White with the 208, and Jalen Tolbert with the 3-2. That's his entire draft. Definitely a hit on Dotson so far. Definitely a hit on Rashad White so far. Definitely a swing and a miss on Jalen Tolbert. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. It's Hall of Fame numbers for the major leagues. So I love what Peter was able to do with his 2022 draft. Let's move to his 2023 draft. With the 103, I think we were all a little surprised that he went JSN. I wasn't fully surprised because I know Peter's a contrarian, and I know he's obsessed with wide receivers. He believes that the way to win in this league is to stack up 9 young wide receivers and win with wide receivers in all your flex spots. Even though this is a PPR league, the champions were flexing running backs. Just saying. I think when you go to compete, what you really, really want are veteran, proven, producing running backs. Or, rookie, proven, producing running backs. Just running backs are going to be the more explosive option. And more often than not are going to be producing, like the 1 through 10 running back is probably going to be producing neck and neck with the 1 through 10 wide receiver. And I feel like those running backs are just cheaper, frankly, than those young wide receivers. Anywho, that's not what I came to talk about. Peter's obsessed with that. Regardless, I really thought because Stafford is kind of like one shoulder injury away from retiring, and Russell Wilson is like one bad season away from being chased out of Denver, I really was thinking he was going to go Bryce Young. Bryce Young scored incredibly well on the quarterback cognition test, whatever the heck that's called. Anywho, so I thought he was going to go QB. I don't want to spend too much time talking. Rashee Rice was his next pick. I thought he made a really savvy move, recognizing that there was a tier of guys. He had about 3 guys that he really, really liked and would have been fine with. So he moves back, picks up a 4th-round pick to go back 1 spot, saying, hey, I'm totally fine. Whatever I get here, great. I could approach him. I really want Charbonnet. I approach him with the same offer. He accepts, moves back, 1 more spot, picks up another 4th-round pick. Now, 4th-round picks may not seem like much, but in this league, there's only 10 teams. That means 40 players. So, 4th-round picks are some league, like a 12-team leagues. 6 of them are equivalent to the back end to a late third, because that's 30 through 36 in it's 30 through 36 in a 12-team league. Those are 3rd-round picks. In our league, those values get bumped up a little bit. Not a lot of hits from the 2022 season. Calvin Austin missed, Tyquan Thornton missed, Snoop Connor missed, Jelani Woods, we'll see, Zamir White missed, Velus Jones missed, Ross, was it? Justin Ross, huge miss. Brian Robinson was a massive hit. I think everyone else is being really stupid not taking him as well, and I was the beneficiary of that. Romeo Dobbs, bit of a hit there. We'll see if he's able to hang on to any sort of fantasy relevant role. But you certainly got some usable weeks out of him last year. And Isaiah Pacheco, another massive hit. So 3 hits in the 4th round, 30% chance. Do I think we're going to see that every year? No, but there is value to be had in the 4th round. So to be able to pick up those 4th round running backs and stay within the tier that you liked, very well done, Peter. Luke Musgrave, 303, solid pick. Peter needs tight ends, got a tight end. Musgrave goes into a very interesting situation with kind of like the Giants for the pass catching role for number 1 and number 2 fantasy relevant roles, all kind of up in the air. Kayshon Boutte at the 403. I like this pick for a flipping aspect in that New England has an ascendable depth chart. If Kayshon Boutte comes out and makes any sort of splash in the preseason, you'll be able to flip him because he's got name value recognition. Darnell Washington with the 410. For Washington, I feel like he's buried behind Freiermuth, but people brought up an excellent point. Freiermuth does have a bit of a concussion concern. I don't know of too many fantasy managers that are really concerned about that. I think players have concussion issues until they don't. And generally, if a player gets concussed in a single season, it's much easier for them to get concussed again. There's a reason that professional fighters take months and months off between their fights, is because they've suffered multiple concussions during those fights, and it takes their brain and body a very long time to fully recover. Now, the NFL provides generally 1 or 2 weeks for those concussions, and frankly, it's not enough. If a fighter were to go out and get clocked in the chin, dropped, semi-unconscious for a little while, and then say, I'm going to go fight again in 2 weeks, would it be any surprise if they get taken out in the first hit, first good shot to their chin? No. So I feel like players have concussion issues until they don't. That same fighter goes and takes a year off, recovers, builds back his physique and all that stuff, comes back out, wins his next fight. No one's super, super duper surprised when that happens in UFC fighting. But people feel like the concussion is a sticky injury. And some people definitely have weaker chins than others. However, I think once you get one concussion, you're much more likely to get another concussion the following week, or the week after that, or week after, any time during that same season, because the season's only 3 months long. And that is still 4 months long. And that's still less time than a lot of UFC fighters take between fights. So something to think about. Next up, Jordan Chall. Jay Chall. We're going to go ahead and look back at your 2022 draft. You grabbed David Bell at 303, big miss. Trey McBride, 307. we'll see. I like him this year. Don't have him as a true potential like elite tight end. He drew 20 or 39 targets last year, but he's got draft capital and he's got no real competition. I don't expect Zach Ertz to be coming in and taking anything valuable from him. So Zamir White at 405. Hard to say he's a huge miss, but he certainly hasn't done anything. I don't know how long he is for the Raiders roster. We'll see. Romeo Dobbs, 409. Again, great pick. So one maybe because tight ends, people are more patient with them. Zamir White, David Bell, I think people are like done with. If you can get anything for either of them, I'd try it. This year, Jordan traded away most of his picks, traded back for his own picks, grabs Jahmyr Gibbs with the 104. I think this is a really savvy move. He saw Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, felt comfortable with either of them. He's got back, not quite back-to-back. He's got a pick, my pick, his pick. He knows that if he grabs Gibbs, he's guaranteed to get a quarterback at 106. So I think he makes a very savvy move because if he took Young, I was probably going to go Gibbs over Stroud. And so instead of being forced to take two quarterbacks and maybe not really want both, he grabs a guy he really wants and then a guy he kind of needs in Stroud. So very savvy move to get both of those. Then he goes and reaches for Devin A-Chain at the 203. Rashee Rice was on the board. Zach Charbonnet was on the board. Jaden Reed was on the board. I feel like the dynasty community is just so stupid when it comes to these running backs. I mean, how many times do we need to see a guy that's sub 190 not work out at the next level before we go, hey, Devin A-Chain, third round draft capital in the NFL. Like maybe I'll take him in a fourth, but I'm not taking him in the second. The opportunity cost is way too high. And here's the deal. What does like a hit look like for Devin A-Chain? 12 touches a game? Like, think about this. Thinking about it. James Cook was drafted to the Buffalo Bills, whose only competition was Devin Singletary, in the second round. And he's nothing in fantasy. He's got some value because he's on the Bills and like they've got a shallow depth chart, but like I don't expect James Cook to ever truly be a fantasy elite running back. And he was drafted with the 207 last year. And you took Devin A-Chain at the 204. Now I get this draft class was a lot shallower than the 22 draft class, but like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And the thing is, Jordan, you're not the only person making this stupid mistake. And what I don't understand is like, yeah, eventually one of these itty bitty teeny tiny yellow polka dot bikini running backs is going to hit. I don't understand why everyone wants to be the guy who called it first. Allow a trend to develop. Allow a blueprint of success for this kind of running back to develop that other coaches and teams can follow. Why do you want to keep throwing away second round picks on like proven losers? Little guys don't get it done in the NFL. And then you grabbed another one in Tank Dell at the 407. The cost is fine, I guess. And I do like his situation in that Tank Dell is surrounded by a lot of like question marks as far as receivers. He's got like Nico Collins and John Mechie, but I expected both of those guys to start over Tank Dell. And 165 pounds, like, honestly, you took a fourth round pick, you flushed it down the toilet. There are running backs on the board still that have a much better chance of hitting. Chris Rodriguez. Let's say let's paint a picture for Rodriguez to be relevant. Antonio Gibson is reviled by his head coach and ends up getting demoted to just special teams because Chris Rodriguez flashes. An injury to Brian Robinson, he was shot in the buttocks not all that long ago. And then all of a sudden he is losing and Chris Rodriguez is starting. Like, these are fantasy relevant roles that you're missing out on because you took a Tank Dell. All right. That's all I'm going to say. Now, we're going to move on to the next player, Brett Fitzgerald. Should be an easy recap. He's made his first pick ever in 2023, and he grabbed Zach Evans at the 404. This is the exact kind of fourth-round pick that I like to see. The only two true fourth-round hits last year were Brian Robinson and Isaiah Pacheco, and I believe you have a potential Isaiah Pacheco on your hands with Zach Evans. Cam Akers, his rookie year, could not take touches away from Malcolm Brown. They wanted to cut him over Henderson last year, but I think they realized like the money just doesn't make sense. Akers is owed guarantee money. Henderson really wasn't. Let's cut Henderson. We'll save more money. He lost touches to Henderson a lot last year, and Henderson was a cuttable asset who could not get another job after he was cut by the Rams. Akers is doo-doo. I'm convinced of it. I don't understand why the dynasty community remains unconvinced of it. He could barely get on the field his rookie season over Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson. Still struggling to get past Darrell Henderson his second year. And Cam Akers did like the best thing he could possibly have done for dynasty owners. He tore his Achilles and then came back super fast. Everyone's like, wow, he's so cool. He's like Wolverine. Dude, that was your sell window for Cam Akers. Anyways, we're not here to talk about Cam Akers and how much I hate him. Great pick, Zach Evans, Brett Fitzgerald. Good job. Next up, we're talking about Juan Solo. He made 2 picks. Oopsies. Juan made 2 picks in the draft. Let's see, did he make any in 2022? He made none in 2022. So his first 2 picks of his dynasty were Kendre Miller at the 206, Josh Downs at the 304. I really like the price point for Kendre Miller. I feel like Jaden Reed was probably the right choice there, simply because Kendre is a bit buried behind 2 other guys on a not great New Orleans offense, not projecting to be great. We'll see what Derek Carr can do with them, but like I feel like that sentence kind of says what you need to know about the projection there. And then Josh Downs at 304, another guy where it's like, y'all, how many times? Like, let me check this out. Josh Downs combine. I want to see what he weighed in at his combine, not what it says he is on Sleeper, because they go off college measurements a lot. All right, so he's 5'9", 171 pounds. Sleeper says he's 5'10", 175. If that were the case, I'd be interested. 5'9", there have been like, I can think of 1, 2 5'9" players that are fantasy relevant, like Steve Smith way back in the day, and Marquise Brown. And off the top of my head, I can't think of another little guy wide receiver who's like very fantasy relevant in redraft. So many guys are fantasy relevant in dynasty, but like they're really not going to crack your starting lineup ever. We tried the Rondale Moore experiment, didn't work. We tried the who was the other little guy? Wan'Dale Robinson, didn't really work. Calvin Austin obviously didn't work. Khalil Shakir, he was not really undersized. Like, I don't know. It just we keep trying these undersized wide receivers and keep thinking like, oh yeah, it's gonna work. He's going to a semi-crowded passing game with Pittman, Alec Pierce, a couple new tight ends. Not super crowded, but like, do you really expect a rookie Anthony Richardson to be able to support Josh Downs in a way that makes him valuable whatsoever? No. I think you probably flushed a pick grabbing Josh Downs. Josh Downs was not on my board at all. I was always going to let someone else take him unless he made it to like the 408. 4th round, sure. I'll take a guy that people love, even though I know he's going to fail, because I know I'll probably be able to sell him for a 3rd at some point. He does 1 good week, selling him for a 3rd, maybe a 2nd if he has 2 good weeks back to back. I'm looking to flip Josh Downs. Hopefully that's what you're looking to do too, because holding on to him is a losing prospect, Mr. Juan. All right, next up, Razor. Razor Ray Mertz only makes 1 selection this draft. In the previous draft, he made a lot of picks. I don't really want to go through all of them, but notable, Kenny Pickett, Ken Walker, Alec Pierce, Desmond Ritter, James Cook, Tyler Algier, Khalil Shakir, Tyquan Thornton, Velus Jones, John Ross. Okay, I went through all of them. His fourth round picks were all misses, but almost every other pick still holds value. Pickett keeps his value. Walker still has value. Alec Pierce still has value. Desmond Ritter, lots of value. James Cook still has value. I don't like him, but he still got value. Tyler Algier definitely lost a lot of value, but you grabbed him at the 308. You had a chance to sell him for probably a 2025 first or something at some point last year. Khalil Shakir, yada yada. So great job drafting last year. This year you make a pick of Brenton Strange. I like it. Tight ends have about a 10% hit rate no matter what round they're chosen in. So why not go tight end in the fourth round? There's a contract situation with Evan Ingram. If Brenton Strange can get on the field and gets 50 targets and just sneak past Evan Ingram for 50 targets or so this year, I am super interested in Brenton Strange because that would signal to me that they're comfortable moving on from Evan Ingram, don't feel like they have to give him a massive contract extension, and then all of a sudden Strange is worth a potential second, and you got him at a 409. I like it a lot. Next up, Jimmer. In 2022, made a couple picks. Chris Olave at the 108, great snag. Sam Howell at the 210, I thought that was a dumbass pick. Turns out you were right. Kyron Williams, that was a dumbass pick. You know why? Because he's a small running back. And guess what? They don't fucking work. Calvin Austin, guess what? Dumb fucking pick because the tiny guys don't fucking work in the NFL. Kept it clean until then. Sorry, guys. Couldn't keep it clean anymore. They just don't work. They just don't freaking work. Stop drafting them. Actually, you know what? Keep drafting them. You're doing me a favor because then the good players actually fall. Michael Mayer, goes Jordan Addison, 108. Michael Mayer, 208. Deuce Vaughn, 308. Deuce Vaughn, I feel like we've had this conversation with Kyron Williams. Here we are again. You took Vaughn at 308. Took Williams at 306. You don't learn, bro. It's not that these guys can't play. Like, they're good at football. You have to be if you're going to be small and succeed in college. But, like, you also have to be a freak effing athlete if you're going to make it in the NFL and be that small. And we've never seen a guy be that small. 5'6", 176. Like, he doesn't have more frame to pack on muscle. He's 5'6". He's chest height on me. And I'm not a big dude. He doesn't have a ton of, like, he's not going to ever get to 190 pounds. He can't. He just physically can't. He'd be morbidly obese and, like, lose all of his agility that makes him any good and useful. I'm going to stop talking about him. You get it. Iceman. Let's talk about everyone's favorite Lordy Morty Voldy. All right. Tom, you made 2 picks this draft. You got Dalton Kincaid, Marvin Mims. Last year, let's see how you've improved as a drafter. Last year, you grabbed Isaiah Spiller at the 305. I think the process was sound, but I think you passed. You went for like a sexier landing spot instead of a more ascendable depth chart. You passed up Algier, you passed up Robinson, and you grabbed Spiller. So I am much more a fan of the ascendable depth chart over the sexy landing spot behind an absolute stud in Austin Eckler. And the draft capital wasn't really there. If they took him in the 3rd, yeah, I'm all in. Love it. But of course, he's not going to the 305. He's going before that. But they took him in the 4th or 5th or something. And yeah, it's basically been a total shit show for Isaiah Spiller. I was out on him as soon as I realized that, one, he was significantly smaller than what they said he was. He was like 6 foot and only like 200 pounds. It's really skinny for a running back. And he's slow. You can't be small. You can't be slow. He's not as small as Kyron Williams, but he's about as slow as Kyron Williams. So I'm not super interested in him. This year, Kincaid, 201 for a tight end. I get it. I get the story we can paint. I also remember a time when there were some freak athlete tight ends coming out, taken in the 1st round. One was drafted to Tampa Bay. I can't even think of his name right now. Oh, shoot. I think he even plays for Buffalo right now. What is his name? He played for Buffalo last year. That's my point. David Njoku, we're still kind of waiting for him to break out. It's like, first-round tight ends are not necessarily a proven thing. You had Jonathan Mingo, you had Rashee Rice, you had Zach Charbonnet. I'd probably still roll the dice on definitely Kincaid over A-Chain because, again, I'll take the 10% chance over the 0% chance that A-Chain has. And that's the thing. It's like A-Chain's going to have some fantasy relevant weeks, but there's going to be a lot of weeks where he puts up 5, 6, 2. And like, you're just not going to know when to start him because he doesn't have volume unless he is a pint-sized Alvin Kamara, which he won't be. And by the way, more about A-Chain. Nope. I've shed on him enough. Marvin Mims. I like the pick. I thought he was, when you made the pick, I thought he was a 3rd-round pick, but he actually was the last pick in the 2nd round. That makes a difference. You wouldn't think it does, but it kind of does. He's got an ascendable depth chart. What else can you really ask for in a 2nd-round wide receiver pick? So he's interesting. Do I want him? No. Would I be looking to like drop him if I had him? No. I'd hang on and see what happens. So I like the pick. And last but not least, Eddie Disler, who has yet to make more than one rookie selection. He made one in 2022, Snoop Connor. That one failed bad enough. He took him at 403, but still, even that failed him bad enough to scare him off of making any picks this year. So that is the draft. A couple savvy moves were made. I really like the move backs that people did where they recognized a tier and had talked to someone who had their guy that they wanted, who had a tier list that was different than theirs. When you're in the draft and you're on the clock and you have a tier and there's like, I'm at the top of a tier here. I'm comfortable with 3 guys. Talk to your league mates. Maybe they don't have the same tier list as you. Maybe they see Zach Charbonnet, like I did, as a tier above all these other guys. Talk to them. I think the worst pick of the draft was definitely Jordan drafting Devin A-Chain ahead of Zach Charbonnet. Let me explain why I don't get it. 1, A-Chain does not have the size to succeed in a fantasy relevant role in the NFL. Right? 2, he's got 2 guys ahead of him on the depth chart. Not 1, 2. He's got Wilson and he's got whatever the hell his name is. No knees, runs real fast. Mostert. Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert. Both ahead of him. You're telling me Devin Singletary, who's now a backup the moment he gets out of Buffalo, is that much better than both of those guys? No, I really don't think he is that much better than both of those guys. And then you got 2 of those guys. You have less draft capital, and you've got pretty much the same profile as James Cook, where like you're kind of a pass catcher, you're kind of fast. Like he wasn't like blazing fast. He ran like a high 4.3, like 4.37, 4.34 or something like that, like mid to high 4.3s. I don't think it was like a 4.2 or anything like that. Let's look it up. A-Chain Combine. So like, and here's the thing, like when Zach Charbonnet was first drafted the Seahawks, I was crushed because I was crushed for Kenneth Walker owners, my boy Ray, rest in pieces. I was crushed for Zach Charbonnet hopefuls, guys who had like the 110, myself. Really sucked to see him go to Seattle. And then I got to thinking about it. And I'm like, you know what? There is some negative buzz about Ken Walker. He did dance a lot at the line of scrimmage. He did get hit when he did miss holes. He did get hit at the line of scrimmage and lose yards. Like he didn't have a super high, like there were some concerns. His pass catching, not awesome. Zach Charbonnet comes into this offense. There's a very real chance that Zach Charbonnet relegates Ken Walker to a between the 20s grinder. And Charbonnet gets the passing down work and the goal line work. He has the passing down skill set, best on the team right now. And he's got that goal line skill set, and then he's big. And like Pete Carroll is like, oh, me caveman, me make big guy go forward at goal line. Regardless of who actually has the higher percentage of converting those opportunities. NFL coaches are mostly knuckle draggers when it comes to that sort of thing. Finally, Austin Eckler gets goal line work, and guess what happens? Because he's good at football, he scores the ball when he's at the goal line. Who would have thunk? Even though he's not your prototypical goal line back. But it took him a long time to get that work because coaches are knuckle draggers. Anyway, so yeah, he runs, Devin A. Chain runs a 4.32. Okay, low 4.3s. I like it, but like nothing else really excites me about A. Chain. He's going to score a couple house plays, but you're never going to know when to start him. Whereas Zach Charbonnet has a very real chance to take over the backfield from Ken Walker. It is a definite possibility, and it's definitely as much of a possibility as Devin A-Chain being a workhorse in Miami. It's much more of a possibility than A-Chain being a workhorse in Miami, where there's a 3-back committee as opposed to a 2-back committee. 2 guys that share the same skill set as A-Chain. Probably A-Chain has a better passing skill set, pass catching skill set, definitely than Raheem Mostert, than Jeff Wilson. But like, I know they trust Wilson more in pass protection than they're going to trust A-Chain. I don't get it. I don't understand how the dynasty community is so stupid about these tiny little guys that come into the league and they think, this one's different. This one's going to be the one. Yeah, none of the others have ever worked out, but this guy's going to be different. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys. I will see y'all in the next one. Peace out. Enjoy the pictures of fish.